Rise and shine. This is your morning Buzzcast for Wednesday, November 19th. I'm Austin Karp. I'm in New York. We have our Dealmakers event at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. But first, I want to get to some of the great content that we had at our Media Innovators event yesterday. Joining me to break it all down, I got Joe Lemire, Chris Smith, and Rob Schaefer from SBJ. Rob, I'm going to come to you first. What was your biggest takeaway from the Media Innovators event?
Yeah, Austin, one of the big overarching themes of the day to me was the challenge of discoverability for big media companies, sports properties. We had folks from Gen Z sports fans from Columbia University to executives with NBC Sports talking about that challenge, the frustrations of it from both the rights holder side and the end user, the fan side. Obviously, live sports have never been more accessible. There's never been more access to more events in more different mediums than there is today, but that challenge of how to organize it in a way that is simple and easy to navigate for fans is something that we didn't have a neat solution to out of today, but is something that is clearly top of mind for a lot of the thought leaders in the industry. Chris?
You know, I think for me, we had the opening panel yesterday was Wall Street analysts tackling biggest storylines in the industry, right? We had David Karnofsky from JP Morgan saying, maybe the ESPN YouTube TV deal isn't the watershed moment. A lot of people think it is. And Naveen Sarma tackled the question of Paramount Global, right? We have this new juggernaut. As he pointed out, David Ellison's never run a company this big. And so the question now becomes execution, right? They've created this juggernaut. They have UFC rights, which are going to be great long term. But the question is, how do they address their cash flow? How do they address their leverage? So I think raised a lot of great questions about the industry. The person I was looking forward to hearing from the most is Matt Hom, longtime sports media executive, now newly named president of USA Sports, the sports division of the recently spun out Versant Media. We heard a lot about cord cutting, unsurprisingly, during the program yesterday. He was the only one that I recall who was bullish on cable. Said they're in 60 million homes. They're looking to double that number. He stopped short of giving us the secret sauce and how he thinks they're going to pull it off, beyond saying, it would be awfully great if a lot of these young sports fans moving out of their parents' homes start subscribing to cable. I'm not sure I'm sold on that theory, but gave definitely a counterintuitive spin, I think, on a lot of the narratives people were talking about. Joe?
Media Innovators is always a great day. I still think it should be called the Austin Karp Super Bowl, but that's just me. The AI content delivery panel that I moderated had a lot of good ideas about how AI is already here and now. Certainly there are some generative AI use cases that'll start to populate and proliferate over the next 2 to 3 years that will make it even richer of an experience for fans. But Scott Gutterman of the PGA Tour talked about how his organization is already seeing a high 6-figure savings just by using AI on the back end for operational efficiency, having more accessible and easier to use translation tools, for instance. They've been able to increase the amount of content they produce by covering every single shot through their partnership with AWS, and that just feeds more content. They have all that data to tell more stories about every single one of the golfers on the course each day. The NBA and Bob Carney are doing almost entire 30-minute shows using AI. Certainly there still ends up being people in the loop. You talked about moving them down the line. They're not necessarily at the very beginning of the process and creating the content or organizing it, but by using AI tools, they're able to be involved later in the process, and it's a lighter lift for them just to make sure that the quality controls are there, that everything is accurate and smooth. And then we heard from the chief product officer at Genius Sports talking about the 3 I's, how content needs to be immediate, it needs to be intelligent, and increasingly needs to be immersive. He talked about taking the volumetric data capture that Genius had acquired Second Spectrum from a few years ago. There are others in that space, but you're able to triangulate the data and recreate action in ways that you never could before, whether it's from a soccer striker or even from the goaltender, whatever these views are that you can never see before. He saw AI providing a lot of these new, unique experiences, and we're certainly going to see a lot more of that going forward.
Guys, my biggest takeaway from the day, and there was so much good conversation, was just about the idea of content delivery and the different ways that is happening in 2025, heading into 2026. We're hearing new terms like ingestion, and this is on the heels of that YouTube TV and Disney deal, where you're going to see content that was on that ESPN app at that unlimited level. We're talking about those WWE PLEs. That's going to be ingested into YouTube TV, similar to the way that YouTube TV created NBCSN to live there to ingest that content from Peacock. So a new turn that we're tossing into the sports media vernacular these days. Also, what's next for streaming platforms? Are there going to be more bundles? We heard an executive from Fox direct-to-consumer talk about that has been successful, what they've done with ESPN. Could there be more there? Are we going to see bundles like that? That's another part of the YouTube TV Disney deal, is that there's going to be a skinny sports bundle, kind of like what we saw with that venue sports idea, but who could be a part of that now beyond ESPN? Definitely a content delivery mechanism that I'm paying attention to there. Also, the talk that we had from TikTok, with 1 in 8 people on the planet using that app. I'm not on it, but apparently everybody else on the planet is.
And for long periods of time, 90 minutes as an average use.
Incredible numbers there, and congratulations to the Chinese government on listening in on all that information. Also, I had a fantastic conversation with John Fanta, who's at NBC Sports now, was at Fox. Just an incredible story, and you can really hear the passion come through when he was talking to the audience. I've heard him call some college basketball games. You're going to see more of this guy on more sports. Pay attention to John Fanta. Incredible broadcasting talent out there. But like we talked about, it's Wednesday. It's Dealmakers Day. Chris Smith, what are you looking forward to the most at this conference?
Austin, it's a little bit of everything. We have a full day, and I couldn't be more excited. We're going to be covering everything from international investing to mixed-use facility investments to tech and new ideas. But if you're covering sports finance these days, you're spending a lot of time on private equity. And I think that's the main focus for me. We have some of the newer players. We have Kara Nordman from Monarch Collective, fresh off in a new investment in a German women's soccer team. Jason Wright, former Washington Commanders president, now leading women's sports investing for Ariel Investments. They just backed the NWSL's new expansion team in Denver. And then Heather Carrott's one of the founding partners with the newly launched Third Space Capital, who I'm very curious to learn more about. But in my mind, I think, the private equity heavy hitter panel is going to be one on the future of sports capital, right? It's Greg Bettinelli from the Churning Group, Josh Empson from Sixth Street, Ted Oberwager from KKR, Julia Whitland from Redbird. I mean, these are heavy hitters. They're rolling up and buying out firms in youth sports. They're doing tech deals. They're doing sports media. And of course, they're investing in teams. Sixth Street just this year, raising a new fund and backed the Patriots, San Francisco Giants, Boston Celtics. Redbird, of course, has been active overseas and here in the States. That's one that I can't wait to listen to. I think it's going to be chock full of new learnings, new insights, and a little bit of, what they're seeing in the crystal ball. Joe, how about you?
In the afternoon, I'm moderating a panel of investors based in the U.S. who are doing a lot of work overseas. But I want to highlight a couple morning sessions. We have one on sports tech disruptors, the idea in the past couple of years at Dealmakers. We've put the spotlight on some earlier stage entrepreneurs and how they've been raising investment and getting their product off the ground. Here, we're talking to slightly more mature companies and how they're really trying to scale those businesses. Maybe it's my bias as a travel baseball coach, but Game Changer has become a big part of my life. And we're going to hear from the president of Game Changer, as well as the leaders of Jump and Cosm. And those are some businesses with a lot of upside that we've certainly been hearing and covering quite a bit recently. And we've also got the Athlete Investment Strategies panel. Josie Altidore of U.S. soccer fame will be on that. He's an investor in the Buffalo Bills. And I'm also curious to hear from Apex Capital. They've got a lot of major European soccer and Formula One athletes who have invested in this fund that's been investing back into sports tech companies. We're going to hear from their CEO later today as well.
Yeah, a lot of great highlights there, guys. I would say the one thing I would add is our last panel of the day. I'm really looking forward to a conversation between R.A. Madcore and Mark Tatum, the Deputy Commissioner and COO of the NBA, about the NBA in Europe and what's next on that front. For me personally, that's been one of the more fascinating sports business stories to monitor of the year. Obviously, Tatum just told the press that the NBA is going to start going to market with teams coming up here shortly. So it'll be surely a fascinating conversation to hear straight from the source, really, how the NBA is thinking about that opportunity and what the next steps might be there.
I'm going to echo a little bit of what Chris got into. I'm really looking for the future of sports capital panel that we're going to have. That's with the Churning Group, KKR, Sixth Street, Redbird Capital Partners. I want to hear particularly from Redbird because they may be involved in this latest bid by Paramount Skydance for Warner Brothers Discovery that involves 3 Middle East sovereign wealth funds that was kind of denied in a report in the New York Post yesterday, late afternoon. Let's see what they have to say about that deal. I hope it comes up in discussion. So that has been your morning Buzzcast for Wednesday, November 19th. Thank you to my colleagues, Joe Lemire, Rob Schaefer, and Chris Smith. I'm Austin Karp. Hope everybody has a fantastic day. Make good choices out there, and we will talk to you all again tomorrow.